Hey everybody, it's Mr. Fulfillment, Randall Guernsey. ShipHero has officially at this point launched our Tap to Pack. It's part of our brand new tactile interface that's really changing the way pack stations operate. This is one of the very first hardware technologies specifically engineered and built in-house by ShipHero. So today I am very excited to be joined here with Russell. He is our VP of Hardware, and we could really well say the father of this creation. So thank you, Russell, for joining me and being here. And for those of you who aren't too familiar with your side of the role in ShipHero and what you've been working on, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what the hardware division of ShipHero is really focused on right now?
Hey, thanks for having me, Randall. Yeah, so my background, originally a software engineer at ShipHero, and then transitioned over to the hardware side of things, starting with our pick to light hardware. So now this is our second hardware project that we're launching, Tap to Pack, as you already mentioned. Um, and yeah, we kind of wanted to work on something that improved upon the adaptive control that we currently use at our packing stations.
Absolutely. And that's kind of where iterations, of working in warehouses stems from. We're all about generating more efficiency, more throughput with less friction at the pack station. And any warehouse who's gone through some of these growth challenges, they experience the same thing, is you first start out almost pre-batching all of your labels and orders at one time. You're picking off of paper pick tickets and matching up the pick after the fact with the label that's already pre-printed, which is a cumbersome and ineffective process. So then an iteration, of picking orders into totes, being able to pack them separately at a pack station, adds more efficiency, more accuracy there. But there's still some gaps of efficiency on the pack out when packers have to look at the screen, use a mouse to actually click on the button that they want to select a box that they would like to use. That it's the start stop methodology that is really the silent time killer. And so we've already created and developed the command barcodes, right? That was one of the very first inclusions with ShipHero, which I was very fond of, coming from a ship station label printing platform, being able to have command barcodes to select a box, to print the actual label, to print the invoice, or get the weight from the scale. Like that already was a improvement of what we were doing before. But then when we introduced the adaptive stations, I mean, I can assure you, myself and many other warehouses alike, that was a game changing adaptation of the pack station, is just getting rid of the peripherals that the employee is interacting with. They no longer can stop that process of packing the order to have to use a mouse to click on a button, or using a keyboard to input information. That is really one of the things that we found was groundbreaking in efficiency gains. And really, Tap to Pack is our answer to that. It's the physical controller unit that basically lets you get rid of the mouse, get rid of the keyboard for more of that high speed, light guided experience. And I've used it and seen it in action, and the rhythm that it creates is incredible. Like there's really no other way to describe that. Just the set of buttons, the lights that pop up, and directly having this interface within the ShipHero environment just connects it all together. And that's kind of where we want to talk about, is part of this broad strategy. We've talked a lot about attainable automations, the tech that works out of the box without an IT degree or needing to know how to program these things. So how does Tap to Pack fit into that mission compared to bigger, more expensive robotic or improvement systems that other people may be leaning towards?
Yeah, so tap to pack. So as you said, like iteration is key, right? So
Hmm.
from keyboard to command barcodes, then to the adaptive controller. What we found was the adaptive controller was really good, but the setup process was not easy. You had a ton of cables that you had to wire for each button. That became messy. You had software that only worked on Windows machines. So, if you wanted to use a Mac as your packing station, that was out of the question.
Yeah.
Um, and then, as we developed pick to light, we realized lights were really good, like guiding people. We noticed the adaptive controller were just regular buttons. So
Hmm.
that kind of we took all these things and that kind of influenced the idea of oh, what if we create our own controller, which had the lights, worked on the Mac, and was a lot easier to set up, and most importantly, integrated directly into ShipHero, so we didn't have to use a third-party software um, to set things up.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for that of not needing these third-party tools to support, these efficiency gains that a lot of warehouses really rely on. And I know that that has been one of the limitations that we've even experienced is just the accessibility of some of that hardware. Is it even available, or is there a wait list of being able to get the buttons themselves or the Xbox adaptive controllers that being able to now produce and manufacture these things ourselves, we have a lot better control over that we can make sure that it scales with the warehouses, with the customers that are on this equipment and on this hardware. So that
Yeah.
that is a huge piece of this. But to kind of dive into more of the operational impact, right? We've seen that the screen interaction, anytime that the employee does have to look away from the screen, look down at the desk, grab the mouse to select a box or a scanner, right, to scan a command barcode. It's those small movements and attention away from the actual job of packing the order that we see that sometimes that reduction is by the tune of almost 90%. How does that impact a warehouse's bottom line during something like Black Friday or a spike in sales volume due to a viral campaign?
Yeah. So yeah, every second counts, as you said. So being trying to be as efficient as possible is what we're aiming for. So, for example, we mentioned the lights, right?
Hmm.
So with Tap to Pack, you're packing an order. We usually use if you're packing an order and you have to decide which box to select. Sometimes we'll tell you which specific box, but sometimes you have to decide. Oh, okay, it has to be a box or it has to be a poly, but we don't know what size it needs to be. So now we have a really cool feature is you have programmable buttons that you put it alongside each box and poly. And if you need a poly, it'll light up all the buttons that belong to a poly. If you need a box, it'll light up all the buttons that need a box. So I just have to glance, look for the blinking light, press the button, grab the correct package, and pack. That saves a tremendous amount of time when I'm packing thousands of orders a day. So it does add up.
And it's all about those economies of scale, right? Those micro efficiency gains of not having to one register with the screen to see on there the packing material, right? Is it a specific size box or is it a box packer select? Even that small amount of time, the couple of seconds it takes for the packer to look at the screen, identify what the material is, and then go back to look above the station or below it to find the right material. Yeah, over the course of 15, 20 packers every single day on a pack station, those seconds really add up to increase the output of the overall volume in an operation. So it's nothing to be ignored or taken lightly, that the light guided flashing to make sure that the packer is aware, okay, this is a box. I know what I'm grabbing for. Just simply tap the button, select the box that they need, and the system automatically assigns that so you have the right weights, you have the right dimensions for that packing material. So you're also not having to verify and validate that you have the inputs correct of the packaging dimensions and weight there. So
Exactly.
it really all leads to that flow state of just allowing the picker to get or the packer to get into their rhythm of packing these orders without that start stop back and forth. But one thing that also I know is a new revision of this tap to pack is the user authentication, right? And I know we've already kind of solved that with the Workforce Hero, having the employee badge, just using a PIN to be able to log into the system. What have we done differently with the Tap to Pack?
So with Tap to Pack, we have support for NFC badges, which is really cool. So traditionally, you would, take your badge, scan it at the packing station. So now you could take your badge, you tap it on the Tap to Pack, and it'll log you in automatically. Um, so now that it supports NFC, you could even expand it to other things. So you could have NFC bracelets, so employees could just tap their bracelet on the Tap to Pack. They could log in that way. And all this is done within our software. So you'll have the ability to read the NFC tags and as well as write the NFC tags from within our software.
I mean, that's incredible. It just opens up the doors for so much additional possibility, right? If any other products maybe are using NFC tags for lot or serial information, is that something that could be an applicable use case down the road?
Yeah. So we've tested scenarios where we have we pick and pack these little cards that have NFC tags in them. All we had to do was add an alternative barcode for that in our product page in ShipHero. When you're packing it, you tap the little cards against the NFC reader on our Tap to Pack. It packs the items, and you continue on your way.
That's that's huge. The fact that right now the use case just using it for employee authentication and logging into the system is just step one. But the fact that we're already thinking ahead those next steps about how this technology could be used in the future just opens up so many possibilities for additional scalabilities.
Yep.
And with where we're at right now, the system is very modular, right? If I have a complex multi-box shipment process, how easy is it for the user there to daisy chain those extra hubs to get up to, let's say, 24 buttons or additional buttons if they have kind of a mega station that they are stocking and using a lot more supplies at the station?
Yep. So what's really cool is we have the main hub, which has some default functionality on it, like login, print label, complete order, hospital, and stuff like that. Then we have two button hubs. Each button hub supports 8 external buttons, right? So you get 16 external buttons, which you can use for box configurations. And that just involves two USB-C wires from the main hub, and then each of the button hubs would have one USB-C wire to each button. So not as cumbersome as the adaptive controller, which is really cool. Uh, but probably the best part about this is the configuration.
Yeah.
So I could log into ShipHero as a manager. I could go to my stations page. I could create what we call a tap to pack profile. So if you have multiple stations, for example, a green station, a blue station, you'll create a profile for each of those stations. And then I could bulk assign that profile to the stations in my warehouse. So prior to this, if you were using the adaptive controller, you would have to go to each station. So if you had 20
Mhm.
stations, you have to go to each station. You have to download the third party software. You have to configure the buttons, and you do that over and over and over for all 20 stations. So the ease
That's
of
a
use now,
cumbersome process. That's time
very,
consuming.
yes, yeah, you would probably have somebody all day setting up adaptive controller stations at your warehouse. Now it's like really easy because everything can be done remotely by your manager within the ShipHero software.
I mean, that alone is huge, giving people the flexibility to set up their packing flow based on order configurations. Because as a 3PL, right, you really don't have a crystal ball of what type of products are going to be coming into your warehouse next. If you sign a new customer and your traditional product profile might be small, lightweight, right? That's kind of where that color code that we've used, blue stations, red stations, has came from. That we want to try and standardize as much as possible. Anything that we would consider standard, great, that's blue station all day. Let's set that same profile to all of those stations once. We know exactly which boxes are where. But if another brand signs up, right, and part of their product is slightly bigger or might require a thank you or insert card that is being stacked and stored at the station, well, set up a new profile, right? And then
Yep.
as that customer starts to scale and they need 2 dedicated stations or 3, you simply apply that profile and away you go. And so the use case there is huge, depending on the type of product profiles and customers that 3PLs and warehouses are working with. Is you have so much more flexibility to create a designated profile without having to constantly duplicate, update, and have that being, your manager's full-time
Exactly.
job. But one thing I am curious about, warehouses are never gentle with hardware. So what can you tell me about some of the stress tests and durability trials that we've put these things through to make sure that, one, they're sensitive enough to feel the user input when they're selecting the buttons, but durable enough to last and sustain in a warehouse environment?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of testing at the factory with simulated button presses. Uh, we're pretty confident that it'll last, with users pounding at them every day. Speaking of, button presses, if you're pressing something every day, you want it to be, a little bit easy on the hands. So we've designed the buttons in a way where they have rubberized silicone on the edges. So, as you're pressing, you're not tapping hard plastic, you're tapping something nice and soft. So it's a little bit easy on the hands if you're doing it every day. Same thing with the main hub. We have rubber coated buttons there as well. So durability, and then the usability is what we kind of try to make work really well.
That totally makes sense. And if I understand correctly, we are offering some sort of a warranty on the hubs and buttons. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So we're offering a 1 year warranty. For if things aren't working on the device, like the lights aren't working, the buttons aren't working, things aren't powering on. So we'll have a full list of that on the website when you're ready to purchase what's covered in the warranty.
Which, I mean, that's amazing of itself, but where did that philosophy come from? Why was it important for us to stand behind the hardware this aggressively for our customers?
That's the ShipHero way to put it. Honestly, that's what we want. We stand by what we build. If it doesn't work, we're listening to feedback, improving. It's kind of how we always done things. So we're not gonna sell you a device, stops working, and kind of like leave you on the side of the road with it. We're here to look out for you, keep this relationship going. So
That's very exciting, and that's kind of where I think this whole mentality of having integrated reliability stems from, right? As we get more into hardware development, first the pick to light, the tap to pack, the idea is to keep everything native to work seamlessly and reliably for warehouse operators. That you are right. Sometimes things do break. Sometimes issues may happen that if you're relying on third-party applications, third-party hardware, all these outside systems, I mean, you could be looking at uh, unsupported downtime that
yep,
is just a killer for warehouse productivity. So I love the fact that we are aware of that we're forward thinking about how we can not only provide quality software, quality hardware, but stand behind the product that we're offering to make sure that if an issue happens, if something breaks, like, no
yeah,
worries, we'll take
we're
care
here
of
for
it.
you.
We
Yep,
It's the entire ShipHero way, right? I don't think he could have
exactly.
said that really any better for where the future is going with hardware. And that kind of leads me to my next question. So we've got the light hardware, and that by itself has multiple use cases that we've talked about. Now we have our tap to pack hardware. Do you have any teasers or any indicators of what might be on the horizon for the next version of some sort of ShipHero hardware?
So yeah, we're currently working on our Pick to Light version 2. So that's in progress. We're gonna have a bunch of improvements. I can't get into too much detail right now, but I'm sure you'll be excited for it. And then we're also working on a project that we call ShipHero Site. So it involves cameras, so you could pick products using AI vision. without
Oh my
having.
goodness.
So you reach into the shelf, you grab the item, and it picks the product. No barcode scanning needed. So that will improve speed and accuracy. So
Oh
two
my gosh.
projects in the works.
Man, I tell you what, with the development of technology and where we're at, I say it almost all the time, but like we are literally living in the future.
Yeah.
There's no better time to be alive for these types of things. You know, this type of product that, yeah, has kind of been around on a enterprise scale, but it's never been readily available for, you know, small to medium sized businesses. And the fact that I really feel ShipHero is paving that way to bring enterprise level functionality and hardware to the small to medium business marketplace is a great thing to be at the forefront of. And I know that a lot of the problems we're solving are real problems that warehouses face every day. I've experienced these problems when I was running my warehouse. I've talked to numerous warehouse owners that have the same challenges, and ShipHero has been a game changer for them to not only use the software, but now rolling out these hardware features. It's only getting better and better as more time goes on. So one thing, you know, that I am well aware of, that it's clear that reducing the small friction points is what separates a good warehouse from a great one. And if we can keep our pickers and packers focused on the work at hand, hands on the product, eyes off the screen, like we're already winning at that point. So,
Yep.
Russell, thank you again so much for the deep dive and for building the tools that actually make the warehouse and human connection a more centric and more enjoyable place to work. So, really do appreciate everything you and the hardware team are doing for ShipHero and the ShipHero customer base.
No problem. And thank you, Randall, for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to the next time we can have one of these chats on the future hardware releases that ShipHero has in store. So, heroes, everybody watching, do not let your hardware be the ceiling to your growth. To celebrate this launch, I believe, and maybe Russell, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we are offering an exclusive 50% price reduction on the Tap to Pack system for this month only. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So, for everybody watching, go ahead and visit the online store that we have. I believe you should be able to find it at shiphero.com. Secure your devices, start shipping faster today, and don't forget to like, subscribe for more warehouse insights. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and let's get packing.